It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha. Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Brouhaha. Marshall Wood and Dale McKee here, ready to talk a little sports. How you doing, Dale? Talking about sports, man. I got one sitting across the desk from me right now. You're a real sport.
I
You know
tell
that,
you
right?
what, there was no, I didn't know that, but I do appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a compliment. I appreciate a good sport.
sports, and you're the academic guy.
Boy, yeah. I've been called a lot of things in my life, but the academic guy's never been one of them. But anyway, I appreciate that, Dale. I do. Listen, we had a guest. We got a lot to talk about, but I'm just kind of excited. I'm a USM guy, okay?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And listen to I graduated from there 3 times. I mean, but anyway, we won't talk about that. But
They only put me on probation.
you know, we had Jay Ladner over here last year.
Yeah.
Love that guy. Great interview, super guy. They were struggling, losing a bunch of ball games. He said, we got to get old quick. Remember that? And I'm looking at they have a lot. They're 7-0.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so excited about that. But listen to this: between State, Ole Miss, and Southern Mississippi, there's only one loss.
It's pretty
So
good.
far, they're all off to a really good start. Basketball season is here, and man, it's going.
I watched a little bit of the Ole Miss game yesterday. I watched a little bit of the Southern game too on ESPN Plus, but Ole Miss had a chance to beat Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma's a pretty good team.
Yeah,
That they got beat in the final minute. But now Ole Miss got a challenge this Saturday. They go to Memphis. It's not easy to win up there.
Yeah.
It don't matter. Memphis is 0-6. It's just tough winning in basketball at Memphis.
yeah.
They've had a really elite program for many years, and they're trying to get back to where they were. I think Southern Miss 7-0. Got Montana tonight at USM. And then they go on the road Sunday to Northeast Louisiana.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what I'm saying is that they've really got a good chance with these early wins before they get into conference play. Now, I don't really know how many games they play in conference, but as far as that, but say if they got a 28-game schedule, they've already won 7. So if they can split the next 20,
Pretty good year.
it's a pretty good year for them, 17-7. It'd be the best year they've had in a while. This is the best start they've had since 2006 and 7. 2006-7, if you don't remember.
Yeah, I think I got it.
So that's about 15 years ago, and so I'm really excited for them. They got help from the transfer portal. The boy from Columbus, Crawley.
Yeah.
Crawley, he is really playing well for them.
Yeah.
And he told us last year in the interview, he said we've got to shoot better from the perimeter. Help me on that word, but anyway, they were shooting dog out of it yesterday. Against Mobile, they were fleshing them up there.
Man.
And so they rolled an early lead, and one time I looked up there and it was like 73-36, so I didn't turn it back over there.
Yeah.
I thought they had it in hand and I could go back to the NFL games.
We may come back to this. We get a little short. I got to say this. We talk about Southern Mississippi. Bowl eligible, baby. 6-6.
And you know what else?
Come on with it.
They did something pretty decent. They were 4-0 against teams from Louisiana this year.
Wow, man.
They beat Tennessee. They beat Tulane.
They beat Tennessee? I love you, brother. I do. You
Tulane. Talking to my brain is running over. This knowledge, it's hard to flow it out.
I mean, there's so much in there. It's just comes out.
Yeah. So they beat Tulane, Northeast Louisiana. They beat Louisiana Lafayette, and they beat Monroe the other day.
Yeah. Tulane's only lost 2 this year.
Yeah.
And they're ranked 17th.
Yeah, one of them.
Before, polls tonight.
Yeah, and the poll said something yesterday. They moved State to 25th and dropped Ole Miss out of it.
Yeah.
So, that kind of, I was strange about Ole Miss. They're 7-0, and then they lose 4 out of 5.
Well,
and their coach gets a $2 million raise.
Yeah, living the good life.
It's a pretty good deal, man.
Toddy.
I did.
Well, listen, we looked long on this first segment. Who we got tonight? Now, we talking.
I thought it was your week to get somebody.
Oh, okay. I got somebody.
Okay, go ahead.
Tyler Cleveland. How about that?
Okay, I've heard of him.
You've heard of him? Matter of fact, I think he's been on the show twice before.
He has. We try to get him, state championships, baseball, basketball, and football.
SB Live.
SB Live.
Man, he's a great interview and a great guy. And I tell you what, I can't wait to see what he's got to say about these Mississippi High School Activities Association playoffs coming up this weekend. So let's take a break from here from our sponsor, Dale, and then we'll come back and have Tyler Cleveland with us. What do you say?
Hey, I agree.
All righty, folks. We'll see you after the break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Tyler Cleveland. How is everything going for Tyler today?
Man, it is a busy, busy day. We had the press conference this morning for the coaches and ADs at the High School Activities Association, and just kind of getting into the groove here for this championship week.
It's going to be a good week. Did you learn anything new up at the press conference on Monday?
I learned where to park, Dale, is the most important thing. That's about it.
Hattiesburg?
The folks at Southern Miss, I'm sorry?
Are you talking about parking at Southern Miss?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
We learned that it appears that Southern Miss is really excited to host this event again. They had a couple of representatives on there. I always love getting down to the Rock any chance I get. So it feels like the old stomping ground. So really excited about this weekend.
Good. Did you get to interview any of the players or the coaches today?
No, I've been doing most of that on the phone.
Gotcha.
I've been on the phone pretty much all day talking to coaches, and the more I talk to them, the more excited I get. I think we've got some great matchups.
All right, well, let's just start with the 1A and work our way up to 6A, and you just give us your thoughts about each championship. You got a defending champion in 1A in Bay Springs, and they're playing a team that is, I think, only in their third year of playing football. And this McEvans, am I right?
Yeah, they are in the early stages of forming that program, but they've always had athletes. It's one of those teams you see at the Coliseum every year for basketball. So it's cool to see that that's translated onto the football field. And man, they've got some players, like right off the bat. And we were talking about this Brenton Hall kid that plays both ways, wide receiver and DB for them, who's a really, really good player. And then, you got the another one, Jalen Smith, who's the same way. I think he had 2 interceptions in the North State against Bakersville. And I think McEvans has kind of taken that mantle that Simmons was holding for all those years. The best team you never heard about from the Delta until they got to the playoffs, and they have just been running roughshod over people. So I think it's a great test for Bay Springs, as you rightly point out, is probably the best team in 1 or 2A this year. They did beat Scott Central in the regular season, and Scott Central's the odds-on favorite to win in 2A. So, I got a lot of faith in Bay Springs, and really excited to see the Ty Jones kid. I've not seen him in person this year, but I understand he is one of the very best players in the state. So it's always cool when you have one of those players at a really small school like Bay Springs.
Yeah. He kind of reminds you, I remember back in the day, like a Buford McGee from Durant or a Walter Packer from Leachville. I think Ty reminds me of a lot of those guys. They're just gifted athletes. And when they get up there on the big stage, they're going to have people blocking or people in front of them, ever what it is. Either he plays running back or DB, but he's just a great athlete, Ty is. All right, let's go to 2A. You got Scott Central, excuse me. And Scott Central's won, I'm on this night train tonight, I think, but they're playing Charleston. Now, Charleston won it back when Tony Vance was up there coaching around 2010 or 11, I'm not really sure, but Scott Central won last year, and they've won 3 or 4 state championships. What makes Scott Central so, I guess, so good at this stage?
Well, they're good up front, and that's always important at this time of year. But they have the skill position players they have are just utterly ridiculous. They've got the quarterback, Quez Goss, you remember him from the state championship last year when they hung 70 on LaFleur County. He threw like 6 touchdowns in that game, and that's kind of the way it's gone for him this year. He's been pretty dynamic. He can run it. He can throw it. I nicknamed him, you've heard of the hefty lefty with Jared Lorenzen in Kentucky. I nicknamed him the mighty righty because he's kind of the same player. He's like a little bowling ball that can throw it. And then, you look at on the outside, the guys he's throwing it to. J.J. Butler, who's a Southern Miss commit. And honestly, I was joking with my Southern Miss buddies that the best thing that could happen is if Scott Central got knocked out of the playoff and all of the film of J.J. Butler just magically disappeared. Because once they get on that stage at the state championship and everybody sees J.J. Butler, they may freak out a little bit because he is one of the best kept secrets in the state. He is an exceptional wide receiver for them. And they've just been able to. They played pretty good defense. I saw them play Velma Jackson earlier in the season, who was probably their best test in region play. And, Velma hung with them for about 10 minutes. And then after that, it was just, Quez Goss just started raining touchdown passes to J.J. Butler on them, and they ran away with it. So I think the biggest question here is whether Charleston will be able to slow Scott Central down at all. They've got a really good running back named Marcus Flowers. I think he had 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in the North State against Eupora. They've got some pieces there, but the big question will be whether they can slow down Scott Central and keep it to be. They need it to be a close game late so that they can, maybe pull one over on them, because Scott Central is by far and away the most talented team.
Most definitely. They were awesome last year, to be honest with you. Okay, in 3A, you got an interesting matchup to me. You got a Noxubee County that's 10-4 playing Raleigh's 13-1. Now, Raleigh's only loss was to MRA Academy, and that was the week that one of their players had died, and the coach's mother had died, and so it was a tough week for them. And so I'm not giving them as a pass on that, but I'm just saying it was an unusual week. And then Noxubee County, to me, I know when you got 4 losses, you're saying, what's that? But now I look at their schedule, and they've played Louisville. They had to play Amory twice, lost to them in the regular season, beat them in the playoffs. But they also played West Point. And I don't know who else they played, but they do have I think they even played Louisville. Louisville and West Point and who else did I say? Amory twice. So they've had a very challenging schedule. What do you think about that game?
Yeah, I think Noxubee County's got a good chance. I think this is one of the ones that I would put into the toss-up category. I really don't know what to expect out of either one of these teams because they played such different schedules. As you mentioned, Noxubee County is battle-tested. They have played some tough opponents. The other team they played was Shannon, and they lost that game 36-25, and it's kind of a real head-scratcher. But the rest of their schedule makes perfect sense. They caught West Point early before West Point had turned it on and still lost. And they lost to Louisville, who is just a world beater of a team in 4A. So, you kind of chalk that up. They get revenge on Amory, as you mentioned. They lost to them 38-22 and came back and beat them 52-51 last week in overtime to get to the state championship. But it's a great year for teams from the Golden Triangle. You've got Noxubee County there, and Starkville, and Louisville. So I'm not surprised at all to see Noxubee County at this point. And they've got some great players as well. One guy I wanted to mention for sure you can watch out for is they have a wide receiver named Anthony Little. You guys are going to love watching him play. That big, they won 52-51, so you can imagine the offensive numbers were crazy. But in North State, he had like 13 catches for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. So we'll see if he can recreate that at this level. They're going against a tough Raleigh team who has maybe one of the best players in the entire state, and Terry and Perkins. I haven't seen him in person this year. That's another reason I'm excited about this weekend. But he's a great two-way player, and all the college, scouts are just drooling over him. But he can play linebacker and running back, and often does. So excited to see what they can do. I don't really know what to expect out of this game. Like I said, it's kind of a toss-up.
All right, well, listen, then we got a pretty good, I think an interesting deal. And what impresses me about Louisville, the one comment I say, they're 10-0 in state championship games. And they're going to play Mendenhall, who probably, I know they were there in the mid-90s and lost, but they had a pretty good run in the 80s. They had a couple state championships in the 80s. So, and Mendenhall's played, to me, a pretty decent schedule. They had to play Columbia twice, and Columbia gave them their only loss first game of the year. And then they beat a pretty good Laurel team at Laurel. And so what do you think about that game?
I think and no disrespect at all to Mendenhall, I feel like this is like a David versus Goliath matchup. Louisville is maybe one of the three best teams in the state, and they're in 4A, which is saying something. And they've got they're high-powered on offense. Their quarterback, they found him about 4 or 5 games into the season. They converted him from wide receiver to quarterback, Key Jackson, and he has just been incredible for them. Really dynamic player. And then you look at the defense, and they are a hard-hitting bunch that doesn't give up a bunch of points. I follow a bunch of their coaches on Twitter. They're all mad when they don't get a shutout. Their only loss this year was to Starkville. It was early in the year, and Starkville went down there to Louisville and walked away with a 21-20 win, which on its face doesn't, it's pretty impressive. But then consider this: those 3 games. The first game after they played Louisville, Starkville was down 12 starters because of the beating that they took at Louisville in a win. They're just a really tough group. It took Starkville 4 weeks to recover from that. So it's been, they're just that kind of team, and they're really, really aggressive and very confident going into this game.
Well, that's a good report, and like you said, I think Louisville will be the favorite in the game. All right, now we've got a bunch of high schools in Mississippi that play football, and we got a team sitting here at 14-0, and they're the only sucker I see on here with 0 losses in Picayune, and they're playing a 11-time state champ in West Point. What do you think about that little rematch of last year's final game?
Well, I'm fired up for it, I'll tell you that. Anytime you see West Point lose, it feels like someone has blown up the Death Star, you know what I mean? But I think the script has kind of flipped on that this year, because Picayune has been, the odds-on favorite all season. And just like always, we watched West Point lose their first 2 games and broke them off. And here they are, they haven't lost since. And they're just getting better and better. But the thing with West Point is they've got a couple of really, really good backs, starting with the quarterback, and then they've got a great running back in the Henley kid. They're the same West Point team you're used to watching. I'll put it to you that way. They're not very exotic in what they do. They're going to come right downhill at you, a lot like Picayune now. But I just feel like Picayune's probably, it's theirs to lose. They beat them last year, and I know West Point's been working all year to get back to this point to get another shot at them. But Picayune's just been really good, especially I thought they made a lot of really strong adjustments from the first time they played Gaucher defensively, because that was just a firework explosion. It was 48-42 in overtime the first time they played, and they really handled business against them this last week. So I really like the way they're playing right now. And then, that little running back, the Dowdell kid, him and the backup, Chris Smith, they're probably the best running back duo in the state. So I'd have to give Picayune the nod here, with the caveat that, if West Point gets going and gets a couple of turnovers, it could be a different story.
That's true. All right, in the final match on of the state championships is a 6A between 11-1 Brandon and a Starkville team that's 11-3. Now, you've told us a little bit about Starkville, but what can you tell us about Brandon?
Well, I got a better look at Starkville last week. I went up to Tupelo for the North-South Championship, against the Golden Wave, and boy, they look like a different team than the last time I saw them early in the midseason. Starkville just looks like a much better team. Their quarterback is fantastic, Trey Petty. I mean, everybody knows him, and the SEC scouts are drooling. And but they've gotten a lot better on defense, especially up front. And Nijatus Holloway and Eric Benton, they're just really good players. So they look the part of a title contender. What I'll say about Brandon is I thought they were the best team from the start of the season. They were the best team in the state at any level. And I had them ranked number one until they lost to Oak Grove down there at Oak Grove, and it made me reevaluate things. But I think Sam Williams would tell you that they didn't play their best game down there that night. And any time that Brandon has, if they have one flaw, it's that they are prone to turnovers. And you see that in their games. The games they've struggled, it's because they've lost the turnover battle or just had a high number of them. They had 7 against Oak Grove, including the turnover on down, which ultimately sank them that night. But when they play well and they take care of the football, nobody's been able to beat them yet. And I think that game with Ocean Springs was an instant classic. So I'm excited to see what they can do against Starkville. But like I said, Starkville's red hot. So I'm putting this one in the toss-up category too, giving a slight edge to Brandon just because they played in this game last year, and I don't think the stage will be too big for them.
All right, well, listen, we run over the high school, and we really appreciate your report because you get to see teams from all around the state that a lot of us don't get to see. But let me ask you a college football question here. What about Hugh Freeze going to Auburn?
I was kind of interested. I mean, I was worried they were going to steal Lane Kiffin away. Well, maybe worried, not the right word. I was anticipating they were going to steal Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss. But just to hire Hugh Freeze and see him back in the SEC is pretty cool. I mean, I feel like he did the crime and paid the time. So as long as he doesn't have the show calls from the SEC anymore, I think, Auburn would be dumb not to hire Hugh Freeze. For whatever his, shortfalls, he is a fantastic college football coach. And anyone who argues that point with you is delusional. I mean, he wins everywhere he goes. I know Liberty didn't have the finish of the season that they wanted this year. But can you imagine what he can do with the resources at Auburn? I feel like, as long as John Cohen gets a good grip on that program, on that athletic program, and gets it to where the sports people are making sports decisions, I feel like that could be an environment where Hugh Freeze could win a lot of football games.
Well, what about you, Marshall? You got a question for the man?
I'll go one question. I'll go back to high school. One thing through this entire season that sticks out in your mind, is there one that you can share right quick? Or is that too broad?
Well, I think it's pretty broad, but I can give you a few. My team that I enjoyed watching the most was probably Vicksburg, and their storyline was really cool. They won their region for the first time in 36 years.
Wow.
And they were just, it was one of those things where it all came together perfect for them. And to have them and Warren Central be really good in the same year was really neat, and that made the red carpet bowl so much better.
Yeah.
But those two teams are going to be in the same region next year, so we'll be seeing a lot more of that. But I thought that was one of my favorite stories. And then just kind of getting, the same as every year, is just getting to know some of these kids and getting to know some of the coaches and the dynamics. It's crazy incestuous how much these coaches have worked together in Mississippi. I was talking to Blake Pinnock from Ocean Springs the other day, and he was talking about how he coached with Judd Boswell at Clinton, and on the staff at Clinton was Tyler Peterson, who was the head coach of Brandon. So it's just cool to kind of learn everybody's backstory and get to know the guys and know what makes them tick. And it's really cool when you have two teams playing each other that you kind of have that relationship with.
Yeah.
So I think I'll probably remember that the most, some of these matchups.
Yeah.
Got really close with Ty Harden at Tupelo, the head coach, because they were so good this year, and have always been tight with Chris Jones at Starkville. So just covering a game like that last Friday night, knowing all the personalities involved, it truly makes it a little more special, at least for me personally.
Oh, I get that. I mean, I've been calling these football games around here for a pretty good while, and when you know these people, it certainly means a lot. Listen, we're out of time, Tyler, and I want to thank you, Dale and I both, for what you do. You're a great resource for Mississippi sports nuts like us. Dale, you got something you want to say before we leave?
Well, I was going to let Tyler tell us about how folks can follow him.
There you go.
Well, it's a good week to do it because we're going to be blowing it out over at Scorebook Live. Just go to scorebooklive.com/Mississippi. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyler Cleveland, or our account, which is at SBLiveMS. Catch us on there. We're on Facebook. We'll be doing stuff all through the week with game previews and coach interviews. And then on Friday and Saturday, we'll have all the latest on what's going on with game stories and photo galleries and videos and everything else you can imagine.
We're looking forward to it,
So
Tyler.
it's going to be a big weekend.
It sounds like it. Listen, I want to ask you to hang on. We're going to take a break, but you stay with us. But right now, we're going to take a break to hear from our sponsor, and we'll be back with the final segment after this commercial.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back to our final segment, and Tyler Cleveland. Always a pleasure to have him with us. He knows Mississippi high school sports about as good as anybody does.
He did well, didn't he?
He usually does. Yeah. He's a real treat and a great resource, like for us all. I mean, and you know how to follow him now. And if you want to know anything about what's going on in high school sports, particularly football in Mississippi, that's your guy. That's your place, and you know how to track it. What's on your mind, Dale? Nothing.
Not much up there today. I'm still getting over Thanksgiving turkey. You know what I like about Thanksgiving, though?
Tell me.
You eat all you can want to that day, and nobody says a word to you. And you get Saturday and you start getting an extra. Oh, what? Are you picking out? But Thursday you get a free pass. You can eat lunch. You go take a nap. You get up and eat again.
Yeah.
You walk around the block, come back, eat again.
Yeah.
Boy, I love Thanksgiving. But you know what? I hate to tell you this. I don't want to see another turkey for a long time.
No turkey for you.
No turkey.
Okay. So, but anyway, big weekend in college football this past weekend. What they call rivalry week. How about that deal from up there in the Big Ten? Man, Michigan's done it again. Harbaugh, boy, is he happy? Can he be grinning or what?
Well, he did a little knife stab about that one comment he made. I don't know if you heard about it.
I didn't. Tell us what he said.
Well, the Ohio State coach kind of inherited a team a few years ago.
Yeah.
He had never been a head coach, and he got the job when Urban Meyer left, and so they promoted him. And so Harbaugh said, I paid my dues. I'm not standing at third without batting. We'll cut it to Coach from Ohio State. So I like that. But I really liked the little quarterback from Michigan. I thought he had a heck of a game. I mean, you take the best player, maybe the best player in the nation, out of the game.
Yeah.
He doesn't even play.
Yeah.
And you're depending on a quarterback to run a little bit and pass a little bit, and he has a heck of a day.
Yeah.
He had a great day. And, after a while, I started pulling for Michigan,
Yeah.
I'm like that. I can't watch a ball game without pulling for somebody.
Got to pull for somebody.
Got to pull.
You got to stand for something, or you'll fall for anything.
You got that right.
Yeah. Any other surprises during rivalry week? That I'm not saying that I was surprised.
Well, I thought A&M's win over LSU.
That was a big.
That didn't really surprise me like totally.
Yeah.
Because we know A&M's got talent.
Yeah.
But they manhandled LSU.
Man, they did.
And it really cost LSU big time.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if this week if LSU goes and beats Georgia?
Well, nothing. They're not going to the playoff. You're not going to take it. I don't care if you win the SEC or not. They're not going to be a three-loss team belongs in the playoff.
No, I'm not saying that. What are we going to do with Georgia?
They'll stay.
You think they will?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Ohio State's right there at 5th, but they got Alabama at 6th. Now, I question this. Alabama's lost a 1-point game and a 2-point game, and Ohio State lost a 35-point game.
At home.
At home.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that. Alabama could get in.
Yeah, Alabama could slip because USC has to play in the conference championship. TCU's got
Jay Mark again.
That's Jay.
Jay
Mark, quick.
Just be patient with us, Jay Mark. Listen, we're going to do it, buddy. I promise.
We'll
One of these days.
get you on the show one day.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about the games this week. TCU's got Kansas State in the Big 12.
Yeah.
You got the SEC championship game, and you got USC playing. I want to say, who are they playing? I can't remember. Maybe it's Oregon or Utah, maybe or.
I think it's Utah.
Okay, well they're going to play them. So
Utah beat them once already.
So what happens if one of those loses?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then you got a situation where.
Well, about the only chance for that to come, I think, to come into effect is if Southern Cal. I don't think Georgia's going to lose. I don't think Michigan's going to lose. I don't think TCU's going to lose. I think Southern Cal could, because this team's already beaten them once.
And Michigan's playing too. It's Purdue, but now they will be.
Purdue's not as good, I don't think.
Yeah, they're like 7-4, but they're still there.
Yeah.
So you got a chance, but it ought to be an interesting watching those 4 games to see how it affects Ohio State and Alabama.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some anti-Alabama sentiment out there since they, every year try find their way into the playoffs, which they do it because they've got a great coach and they've got some great players over there too.
They'll hate to take the old hook and put it around your head and yank you off the stage, but that's what we got to do. So we're out of time. And we want everybody to know that you can keep up with us during the week on Facebook at the Brouhaha and on YouTube at the Brouhaha, where you can see all of our Brouhahas past. If you ever want to go back there and browse the library there, you can come back and see some of the folks we've talked to. But for now, it's time to say goodbye, Dale.
One comment before I say
Come on with it.
I want to wish my mother a happy birthday.
Oh, can I do that too?
Sure.
Happy birthday. We appreciate you listening to us.
A loyal listener.
Yeah, and we thank you for Dale. So there you go. What time is it?
Time to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale. We'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.